Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today's topic is something super relevant for geopolitics in South Asia, especially for India. We are talking about the recent development that the US Army has moved into Bangladesh, and this has set off an alarm in its neighboring countries, especially India and Myanmar. So today we'll discuss what's exactly happening, what is the reason of this US movement, why it matters to India, and what could actually come next. So friends, watch this video till the end. It will be a very interesting one and you can derive lots of learnings from this video. So let's get started. First, let's discuss the shocking arrival of US troops in Bangladesh. So the US Army has quietly landed in a neighboring country, that is Bangladesh, not to fight war, but officially for so-called military exercises. Yes, that's exactly what just happened in Bangladesh. So American C-130J Super Hercules aircraft has landed at Shah Amanat International Airport in Chittagong in Bangladesh, carrying US soldiers. Now the US says that the official reason that they are here is for joint humanitarian and disaster relief exercises, which they have codenamed as Pacific Angel 25. Sounds harmless, right? Pacific Angel. Now, who would object to doctors, engineers, and soldiers helping local communities prepare for natural disasters? Well, no one, right? But then here's the twist. Along with Pacific Angel, US is also conducting an operation called Tiger Lightning 25. And that's a full-scale combat training exercise, which has actually set alarm bells ringing, especially for India and Myanmar, who are watching this very carefully. So if you look at the map here, here's Bangladesh, here's Chittagong Airport, here's India, and right here is Myanmar. Now for India, Bangladesh isn't just another neighbor. It's a country that literally gives our landlocked northeastern states the access to the outside world. For Myanmar, this feels like the US is setting up its camp right at its doorstep. So yes, the US Army in Bangladesh isn't just a headline. It's actually a geopolitical storm in the making. Now let's discuss the political earthquake which has happened in Bangladesh, from Sheikh Hasina to Muhammad Yunus. So as we all know, for years, Sheikh Hasina was the Iron Lady of Bangladesh. She had strong ties with India. She managed Bangladeshi economic growth and also balanced between the big powers. But then here's the important thing. She also resisted the US demands. Yes, that is important. She resisted to the US demands. So one key US focus was the St. Martin's Island, which is actually a tiny dot in the Bay of Bengal. The US wanted this island to set up its military base. But then Sheikh Hasina categorically denied this demand. And her refusal, which many people also argue, has costed her to lose her power in Bangladesh. And then she had to step down. Now fast forward, her government collapses, and now enters Muhammad Yunus, who is a Nobel Peace Prize winning economist. He is also called the banker to the poor. Sounds like a perfect liberal hero, right? But then behind the hero figure, Yunus has something else, a green signal and support from the US. Yunus had openly praised former US President Joe Biden, and also vice versa, Joe Biden has also praised Yunus at multiple occasions. Many people believe that his rise to power in Bangladesh was due to US influence, just as Hasina's fall was accelerated by the US displeasure. Even Donald Trump, who wasn't fond of Yunus, couldn't actually stop the larger American establishment from seeing him as their man in Bangladesh. So the political change in Bangladesh wasn't just about elections or the recent Gen Z protests. It was about the huge support which Bangladesh has received from the US. Then the moment Yunus stepped in, US troops also followed. That's definitely not a coincidence if you ask me. Now very importantly, let's discuss the Chittagong connection and why this airport matters so much. So let's talk geography because that's the heart of the matter. So Chittagong is not just another airport. For India, especially our northeastern states like Tripura, Mizoram and Meghalaya, this port is actually their gateway to the sea and also the outside world. Roads from these states connect to Chittagong, making it a very important or a crucial hub for trade and transport. Now imagine US soldiers walking around in Chittagong. Suddenly, India's northeastern lifeline looks a little less secure. If tomorrow America wanted to pressure India, even diplomatically, the message would be clear. We are right here at your access point, so beware and we can block you anytime and stop your trade and transportation if you don't agree with our terms. And then there's Myanmar. Chittagong is a perfect strategic point to monitor everything which is happening across the border. That includes insurgencies, trade routes, or even the Chinese projects. So when we hear that US troops are in Chittagong, don't just imagine some random training drills. Imagine the chessboard of Asia, where a new piece has just been placed at a very strategic square by the US. Now let's discuss the Indo-Pacific strategy and the bigger game against China. So this is where things get really interesting and the big picture actually comes in. The US has its military commands covering every part of the world. Now as you can see here on the map, we have US Northern Command, here's the Southern Command, here's the African Command, then there are US European Central African Commands, and finally the US Indo-Pacific Command. So the Indo-Pacific region, stretching from India's waters to America's Pacific coastline, is under the US Indo-PACOM. Now, why does US have such a tremendous focus on this particular command or region? Well, that's because this is the area where US wants to counter China. From the South China Sea to the Bay of Bengal, China is building ports, bases, and economic corridors. The US can't just afford to sit back and watch, right? Now enter Bangladesh, a country which is often ignored in big geopolitics, suddenly becomes critical. Why? Because it sits right next to the India's northeast and just above the Bay of Bengal sea lanes. From here, the US can watch China's belt and its road projects, especially in Myanmar, and also keep a watch on India. Think of it like this: if the Indo Pacific is a giant chessboard, then Bangladesh is that small square which, if occupied, gives control over half of the entire chessboard. And that's why the US is here. Now let's discuss the most important factor why the US is here, and that is Myanmar, its rare earth metals, and the silent battle for these rare earth resources. Now let's zoom in on Myanmar. It might look a poor, unstable country with military rulers and ethnic conflicts. But beneath its soil lies something extraordinarily valuable, and that is its rare earth minerals. These minerals are the building blocks of our today's modern life. Your smartphone, your electric cars, fighter jets, and even missiles. All of these have rare earths in their components, right? And today, China controls most of these world's rare earth supply. And Myanmar is the second largest source. First one, of course, being China. So naturally, the US is worried. If China locks Myanmar into its own territory and keeps control over its rare earth minerals, then the West, or particularly US, will be even more dependent on China. And that's why US is suddenly interested in Myanmar again. Also, you might have seen recently that Donald Trump, who usually doesn't care much about the democracy abroad, has quietly lifted its trade and tariff sanctions on Myanmar, essentially to make good relations with Myanmar and try to get its huge mineral reserves. And guess what? Where's the best place to monitor Myanmar from? Well, you guessed it. That is Bangladesh, especially the Chittagong area. So the story isn't just about soldiers in Bangladesh, it's about minerals in Myanmar, and that attracts US the most. Well, you might be wondering all that is fine, but then what this actually means for India's future. So finally, let's talk about India. So for years, India has worked on improving its connectivity with the northeast through Bangladesh. You talk about highways, rail networks, and shipping routes. These were all supposed to make sure that the trade runs smoother. But now with the US Army doing its exercises in Chittagong, a shadow has actually fallen over those plans. If tomorrow US wants to pressure India, say on buying oil from Russia or on trade with Iran, they don't need to shout. They just need to remind India that remember who's sitting here at Chittagong. Well, that's how geopolitics works. Smaller countries like Bangladesh, Maldives, or Sri Lanka may look insignificant on the world map, but because of their strategic location, they get disproportionately high level of attention. That's why you see China building ports in Sri Lanka, why the US chases Maldives, and why now Bangladesh is suddenly on the American radar. So for India, the challenge is huge. How do you secure your northeast, keep Bangladesh friendly, resist Chinese influence, and now also deal with the US presence in Bangladesh all at the same time? The answer or solution won't be simple, but then one thing is clear that the US Army in Bangladesh is not a local story anymore. It's a chapter in the bigger power struggles of the 21st century. Now it's time for some Q&A. Now let me ask you a question and let's see how many of you can get this right. So the question is, which of the following is the biggest hidden reason behind US interest in Bangladesh and Myanmar? Is it A, tourism and cultural exchange? Option B, monitoring India's northeast connectivity? Is it option C, access to Myanmar's rare earth minerals, or option D, supporting democracy in South Asia? You can drop your answers in the comment section. I'll wait for 3 seconds for you to write down your answer. So 3, 2, 1. Friends, the correct answer is option C, that is access to Myanmar's rare earth minerals. So while monitoring India's northeastern region and containing China are also very important, the hidden long-term reason is the resources. As we have discussed in this video, the rare earth minerals are critical for America's defense and technology industries. And Myanmar is a key source of these minerals. So that makes Bangladesh a very strategic location for the US. So friends, that's it for today. Hope you liked it and I'll see you in the next one.